Owen, are there any members of the public that want to address us?
Unless Bella or Roger want to say anything.
Sorry, I'm muted. No, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, welcome to our May meeting. First item is to elect chairman for the year 2021-22. Do we have any nominations, or how do we want to go about this?
Well, I would quite like to propose Colin to continue his work in the past few years.
Any other nominations?
Bob?
John, have you got
I'm
nominations?
happy to second that.
Yeah, I'll second that as well.
Okay, are there any other nominations? I can't see everybody.
No, I can't. I can see everybody. Has anybody else got any nominations?
Okay.
No. So we've got a nomination of Colin, and we've got a second of Bob.
Okay. In theory, shouldn't Malcolm be controlling this, really? Because he should ask for.
But because he can't see everything that's going on, it's
Okay.
very difficult for Malcolm to do that, actually.
Okay. So then, would you, Owen? Can you request a vote then?
Yes. Can we have a vote in favour of Colin being elected chairman for the following 12 months?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Malcolm. Is that unanimous, or is anybody against?
Yeah.
Right, unanimous.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
As chairman, I would like to propose Malcolm once again, because I think he's done a sterling job, even though he can't get on to Zoom. I'd like to propose him because of his support and his interest in parish council affairs. That's my proposal.
Yes, I would support that.
So Cynthia is seconding that then.
Okay. Any other proposals for vice chairman? Are you happy to do that, Malcolm?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I'd be very pleased to.
All those in favour?
Anyone
That's
against? No. Good.
Carried.
Unanimous.
We now come to the well, we should be receiving now apologies for non-attendance or to approve. We had Councillor Gilling give apologies. Is that right?
That's right. We've got Andrew Gilling.
And we've got David, who unfortunately isn't with us.
David is here now. David is here.
Oh, welcome, David. Sorry, I couldn't see you. So are you happy to receive those apologies from Andrew Gilling? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interests on the business this evening. Bob, on planning.
On all your usual ones.
Yes, please.
Andy?
And Andy Holmes.
On the where is it? Item 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Next item is to elect councillors for the following responsibilities. To save time, the way it's set up at the moment, just to remind you, is footpaths is David, Cynthia, Brian, highways Malcolm, planning Andrea, Nigel and Andy, audit monitoring myself, Owen, John, Harper and Andrea, charity trustees Owen, Bob Filmer, Brian, the SALC rep is Bob and the club rep is myself. Could I propose, unless anyone had violent objections, that we keep those positions exactly as they are? Anyone wants to change?
Fine.
Fine,
Yeah.
fine.
Just one addition there, Colin. The signatories for electronic banking, which haven't been there before, need to be added to that list. Andrea, Colin and Bob.
Yeah, Andrea, Bob, myself and yourself for electronic signatories. Yeah. Is everybody happy with that? It just says
Yes.
Yes.
thank you.
Okay,
Um,
got that?
So the next item 5, to affirm and adopt the following for the forthcoming year: standing orders, code of conduct, meeting dates as pre-circulated, the green rota to include parish surgeries when appropriate, and the financial regulations. Owen, we've circulated these in the past, haven't we?
There's no changes. These are not updated. These are continuing policies, which each year council should re-adopt to ensure that they've actually agreed for them to continue. So there's no changes to the ones that you've already adopted in the past. So this is just a re-adoption of existing policies.
Okay. Could I propose then that we literally vote to re-adopt those existing policies, please? Do I need a seconder for that, Owen?
Yeah, ideally. So Colin and Brian, basically. Yes.
All those in favour?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
great. Well done. Now, item 6, to approve and sign as a correct record of the minutes, our virtual meeting on Wednesday, the 7th of April. You've already had them. Are you happy that I sign them when appropriate as a true record of that meeting, please? Could you signify?
Yes.
Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, now we've got to pass a resolution as making the planning application that we're going to discuss now as an exceptional item due to COVID regulation timescales. So I just need your approval that we can go on to discuss this particular planning application. Bob?
Happy to propose that.
Thank you. John, second. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, item 8, planning. So we better
Andy's already gone. I put him in the waiting room.
And Bob.
Can you put me there too as well, Owen, please?
Of course, yeah, sorry. Forgot Bob. Okay, there we go.
Andrea.
Mr. Chairman, I'll take this one.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Nigel.
Owen, could I share my screen?
You can, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. I'll just need you to enable that I can share it, and then I'll put some slides up just to put a bit of color around this application.
How do I enable you to share your screen?
I would go to participants, hover over my name, and just make me a co-host, and then take it off afterwards if you want.
Okay. Bear with me.
No worries. Yeah, perfect. Okay, bear with me while I pull this presentation up quickly. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is planning application for a replacement of a flat roof with a pitched roof and an erection of a double garage at the Burrs Court, Church Lane. So on the planning portal, there were 8 documents that needed to be reviewed. One of them, obviously, the application form. 2 of them were reports about a tree survey and a flood risk assessment, and there's a summary. And then the rest were just drawings to give you an idea of what this application looks like. So the first picture, just to give you an indication of the location, which is down Church Lane, opposite, I think it's ivy clad, that road, and to the right-hand side, if you're heading up to the church, he's on the right-hand side. Now, before I start talking about the double garage, I just thought I'd give you a view of what the existing layout of the land and the property looks like. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see the dark hashed out area, which is where the double garage is proposed to be erected. It also shows some sort of like line of root of the trees, and there's 2 trees in the front of that garden, which I'll come on to now. So there was a tree survey submitted by Woodland and Countryside Management. In that document, if any of you have had a chance to look at the portal, it goes through explaining about those trees and where those trees are in relation to the proposed building. But in summary, it is stated that there is no impact on those 2 horse chestnut trees that are located at the front of the property, providing that the requirements are met in the method statement for building that building close to those trees. In other words, to protect the roots of those trees. So the next report that come through was about the flood risk assessment. This was done by TMA Design. It's the same company that actually put the drawings together. And just in summary at the bottom there, the proposals of that building will not increase the risk of flooding to the properties on that land or affect any other properties in that area. So we move on to what is it going to look like? So this is what the existing building looks like. And that drawing on the top left-hand side, you can see the flat roof to the right-hand side of the 2-story building. The pitched roof is intended to go in that section, and this is what it will look like. This is the proposal of what it would to look like. So that's the alterations to the existing building. And then the only other drawing that I have, which is of the double garage, and you can see here clearly it's a flat roof. It's not going to be a pitched roof. So in other words, it's not going to be of great height in the garden. And then last of all, just again to show you the location, really sort of indicates the garage in relation to the property and the boundaries. I don't know if you can see my mouse hovering over there where the garage is. Okay. So in summary, there were no other observations or comments on the planning portal, so there were no objections raised by any neighbours. It is improvements to an existing building, but I would ask that we just discuss whether this would be in keeping with the other buildings that are of similar nature in this location. So that's for the council here to discuss. And then obviously the double garage is going to benefit the residents of the property. It doesn't impact those 2 horse chestnut trees there. It doesn't impact the roots of those trees, and nor does it have any impact or increase of risk or risk of flooding to existing or other properties in the area. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I hand it back to the council and yourself to open the discussion.
Wonderful, well done, Nigel. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. That was really cool. Well done. Are there any questions associated with what Nigel has presented to us? You saw that the existing flat roof has a small pitched roof to one end, keeping the existing flat roof structure. And then the garage would also have a flat roof structure. And it's not on the trees, hopefully the roots, and it's not going to impact or make flooding any problem to the building by the look of things. So are there any questions, or would someone like to propose any amendments or any observations on this, please? Malcolm, you got anything?
No comment.
Okay. It seems to me, Nigel, from what you have said and the rest, has Andrea had have you been involved in this as well, Andrea?
Sorry, I've only just this minute come in. The M5's at a standstill.
Yes,
Sorry,
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Andrea and I spoke about this, not yesterday,
the planning.
the day before, yes. So Andrea's aware of it. I'm not too sure. I haven't had a chance to link up with Andy, but obviously he's got a vested interest. I mean, from what I presented there, it was just a discussion on whether or not it was in keeping. As you rightly said, there's still a flat part of that roof that will exist. It's not going to be an eyesore, for example, or stand out from the other properties in that area. I don't see any reason why we would raise any objections to this application.
Okay, so it seems to me that the recommendation is that this is if you like, a property improvement and a development which gives benefits to the owners of the existing property, and is in keeping with the style of the initial property anyway. You've got a flat roof there anyway, and
Yeah.
he's continuing the flat roof. So it seems to me that we are in agreement with that, and that it should be proposed. So can I propose that we accept it on those conditions: property improvement and redevelopment for the benefit of the residents and the particular property?
Yep.
That would be,
Yes.
yes. Are you going to second that, Malcolm?
Yes, I will.
Okay. So any other proposals against that? Okay, all those in favour? Okay, that's carried then.
Right,
Well
just get the others back in again.
Thank you, Nigel. Great, well done. Thank you. We got Bob back in.
Got Bob back in. I haven't got Andy with him yet. Hold on. Oh, there he is. Right. Okay.
We got him.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Right, item 9, footpath matters. Brian and I said we'd walk up the path. Brian, do you want to give a resume?
Yeah, we went up. I didn't quite get up to the top of the knoll, but because Colin wouldn't carry me. But anyway, we inspected all the fencing. Firstly, the farmer's fencing is wobbly. A lot of the uprights are very wobbly, but that's his problem, not the parish council's. It's the duty of the farmer, I believe. The path is a little treacherous, as you know, but near the top, the fence was broken in several places, and it's up to us, I think, to get it repaired. And Colin took some photographs of it, which show all the damage where people have climbed over. How are we going to avoid it in the future? Well, first of all, I think we need a notice put up there telling people to please keep to the footpaths, because otherwise the fences are damaged. And I think that's really basically all we need to say. But unfortunately, because of the situation, it's the sort of thing that might well happen every year if the weather is really bad. So I don't, anybody else wants to say any comments about that? But Colin has got a lot of evidence, photographic evidence. Are you showing any tonight?
No, I wasn't, Brian. I hadn't planned to, but
No, right, okay.
we'll probably do a detailed survey now, because we do a detail one, and then probably put together a schedule of work that needs to be done on that road.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
But it's quite a job, isn't it? Really, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Brian.
We'll also have to tell the farmer what we're doing as well, won't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other items on footpaths? Anybody got any?
Well, I spoke to you, didn't I, the other day about the fence which has been put up behind the cider farm. And that the fact is that you cannot get to the top. You can't get to the top. You can only go so far because it's not safe for one thing, but you can't really see a way through. And it's the same if you can't try to come down, because there isn't any way to get down unless you go onto the side of the fence that they've told you not to go. I don't know if anybody else has been up and had a look. Sorry, are you still there?
Yes, yeah.
I lost you.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen, because you cannot get up to the top? Did you go and have a look or not?
Yes, I did. I think I don't know if David can confer with what we talked about, is that they put the fence now, as you look at the knoll, on the right-hand side of the field. In other words, where you used to walk up the centre of the field, they've now asked walkers to walk on the right against the hedge. It's about 1 metre or so wide. But the problem is that the fencing brings you out at the bottom of a very steep hill or a climb up to the top path. And there's no recognised way up there. And it is a treacherous route, particularly if it was wet. And if you remember, we did take this up with Chris East, whether we should do anything to make that path a bit safer. And his advice was not to do anything, because once you do something, you're forever responsible for maintenance. But I think one of the key elements here is that probably we should have asked the landowner whether they could continue their railed fence up the side, so that anyone that wants to walk up there could in fact hold on to the rail to get themselves to the top. Because I would recommend that councillors go and have a look at it. It's a very treacherous path, and for anyone that uses it regularly, it's not good at all. And we do need to have a closer look at what we could do. And a rail sounds to be the most obvious thing. I don't know what other people think. David, you know it there. Have you got anything to add to that?
Not really. I've seen it from a distance with the fence, but I haven't actually been up myself, and I think I better go up as a sort of urgency, because I've heard from a few people about it. But before, it's always been treacherous, how steep it is at the top. But it sounds like we're going to have to do something about it.
Well, I went up to the top, and like to get right up, I had to kind of go on my hands and knees a bit, because there's nothing to get hold of. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but you couldn't. There's no way. And then I held onto the trees just to get out and get over the stile. So
just
it's not.
To say, sorry,
Go on, Brian.
Just to say that I'll go around there tomorrow, have a walk around, and take some photographs.
Okay. Well, if you want to go around later on, I can't do it first thing, but if you give me a time, I'll come with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Or David, if you can manage it as well, unless we independently walk back. Is that okay?
Yeah. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian. Anything else on footpaths? Yes, Nigel.
I don't know if people look at the Brent Knoll Gazette online, but there was an incident posted on there. I need to look at more detail of the exact location, but there was an individual that had an incident trying to cross a bridge that I believe is on one of the public footpaths, and ended up impaling themselves on the leg from an iron bar, because the bridge was from the pictures didn't look suitable to try and even walk across, but they attempted to walk across it, and it gave way, and they ended up in hospital with this spike wound in their leg. So maybe I don't even know if that is part of our footpaths or not. But it may be it's looking at this Brent Knoll Gazette.
Was it in the Brent Knoll News, or was it?
The Brent Knoll Gazette. It's called the Brent Knoll Gazette, isn't it? It's online on Facebook. And I know my wife received a call from a lady that she knows from the horse world, but it was in the fields at the back of us on that footpath that goes. If you followed, I can't. Say that again.
Crooked Lane, is it? Is it off Crooked Lane?
Yes. No, not Crooked Lane, but it's at the back of me. But it's definitely on one of these public footpaths. I can get more information in an email to you, Colin, and yeah.
Well, there is a footbridge, as you know, which has destroyed and causing people to take their life in their hands crossing the Rhine because it's been totally demolished.
Yeah.
I.e. the actual foot sleepers comprise the footbridge have been taken away, leaving a huge dip, and people are trying to.
They put planks across it, haven't they? There's planks of wood going across it. Okay.
Really,
Yeah.
And we've told Chris East it's a Burnham without problem, and Owen can confirm that. But what Burnham without will do, or what Chris East will do about it, I don't know.
Okay. Okay. I just wasn't sure whether that was sort of like within our remit. That's all. Yeah.
It may, if you can tell us precisely where you think it is, then it may well be that one. David.
It's the issue that you've been talking about, and it's all in hand with Chris East. I've just looked it up on Facebook on my phone, and it's the same as what we've been talking about, and it's in hand with Chris East as far as I know. Well, it is definitely.
Yeah, thanks, David. Is that okay, Nigel?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Thank you. Anything else on footpaths? Okay, thank you. Highways, Malcolm, anything?
No, there's nothing outstanding. I've not had any reports from anybody.
Okay, thank you. Who did the Village Green report?
Me.
Okay, Brian, over to you.
Yeah. Generally, everything was quite good. We've been John has got an excellent new notice for the front gate about banning dogs and bonfires and barbecues and so on. So hopefully you'll see that and approve it and put it up as soon as possible. The notice at the end of the green, at the back of the green, needs either cleaning or replacing because it's in a shocking state. There is a new table to the left by the slide, but unfortunately it's been put under the trees and now it's covered in bird mess. So we need to move it, but unfortunately I believe it's cemented in, but it needs to be moved, otherwise people are not going to use it at all. I don't know what the rest of you think about it. And also Colin from GB Sport said that on these new tables that we've got, if people are having barbecues, which we've asked them not to, they do scar the table surface. So it's something to look out for. Okay. And everything else was fine. I noticed there was a mirror now in the ladies, but I wonder why there wasn't one in the gents. Sexual preference, I think.
Discrimination, Brian, I think it is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But everything else, as far as I was concerned, was fine, apart from the odd bit of litter. I still get complaints from a certain person about the noise level at times and the behaviour of children and parents. But I mean, it's a village green. It's what it's for. Obviously for good behaviour, not bad behaviour.
Councillors, do you think that we should move this bench to a better position away from the trees? It is hidden round the corner a bit out the way, but well be better to move it to a different part of the green.
Mm.
I think the summer's coming on and people are having picnics. They're not going to use that table, are they?
No.
Okay.
It's covered in it, really.
What do people feel about that?
Yeah, I think
can-
you should. I think you
Sorry?
should.
Sorry, Cynthia.
Yes, I think you should move it because they're always going to be birds in the trees, aren't they?
That's
Unless
not the birds.
we'll have to keep cleaning it.
Okay, so if we get some new brackets in from Glaston, if you could authorize to do that,
Yeah.
then we can ask Paul, yeah, to recite it. And who will help me or help us choose a place to recite it, please?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to.
Nigel? Okay.
Colin, can I just say something about the signage that Brian mentioned? John has got a sign quote, which obviously we need to agree tonight if possible.
Yeah. John, he has circulated the details of the sign, I think, haven't you, John? Yeah. So how much is it, John?
35.
How much?
About £35, I think.
Okay, so the proposal then is that we, because it's not anywhere else on the agenda, I see, but the proposal is that we purchase this sign for £35 and get it erected.
It is a graphic one. It's very good.
Yeah.
I think Bob wants to say something.
Okay, sorry, Bob, go on.
Was only going to ask in terms of the wording. Just I think when it came round, did it say it was this? We maintain the village green, and it says the local council or the village council. It doesn't say the parish council, and I just wondered if it should be parish council rather than.
Oh, yeah, I think we'll do, don't we?
But other than that, there was no other comment. I thought the rest of it was the sign is great. It's just we're the parish council. We're not a village council.
John, can you amend that to the parish council? Yeah? Is that all right?
Fine.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favour then? Sorry, Brian.
I was just going to say, it was reported to me on Saturday there's still people taking a lot of dogs on the village green, in spite of the notice. But we've just got to make sure that we tell them that not to.
Okay. All right.
And this sign, I think, will help because it is very graphic.
Okay. All those in favour of buying the sign once amended?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well done, John. Thank you.
Play area report.
Play area report.
Pre-circulated, so you should all have a copy of that now.
Well, I think we're going to be discussing that probably later under where was it? Item 13. Yeah. Okay.
Just on the village green, did everybody got the rotas okay? So everybody knows what the rota situation is for the forthcoming year. Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
There's nothing to report from me. So clerk's report.
Nothing from me either.
Okay. Anything from the police and speed watch? You did pre-circulate something, Owen.
Sam Pierce sent me a monthly report which I forwarded on to everybody. I'm not sure it contained anything really revolutionary, but at least it was a report, which I think we must be thankful for.
Thank you. Bob, your report.
Yeah, just a couple of things tonight, Colin. Just an update. Obviously, you all heard that this the law case that was looking to try and allow these virtual meetings to carry on was turned down by the High Court. So basically, as we've been advised by Owen, as and from the end of this week, we cannot hold virtual or hybrid meetings. We have to hold them in person. I think it's disappointing that the government didn't allow that to be at least extended until the COVID regulations have been fully eased, but that's where we're currently at. In terms of
can I ask what the reasoning is behind it?
the government's comment was that when they were approached by all the councils, because districts, counties, and the National Association of Local Councils approached them, and their comment was there wasn't adequate time to allow it to be. It needed to be done through primary legislation, and they said there wasn't enough time in the calendar for them to put it through, and that we should prepare to be able to hold meetings in the old way, which was not particularly helpful. So as I say, the legal challenge was to try and find another way around that, and unfortunately the legal challenge failed. On the coronavirus itself, you'll have seen the rates being publicised locally. I mean, Sedgemoor now is down in the teens again per 100,000. It will bounce around quite a lot now because the figures are lower. They can jump quite dramatically. If you end up with, say, one household all being affected, potentially it can make a big difference to our figures. So as things stand at the moment, things are heading in the right direction still in this area. Somerset is still low on the figures. And as I've mentioned to you before, there's this 5-year running average of sort of deaths within the county. The latest couple of sets of figures have shown that we're actually 20% below the 5-year average at the moment for deaths currently. So things are more back to the normal sort of numbers that they would expect to see, if anything slightly lower. But as we've been seen in the past, these things can change very rapidly if people don't stick to the rules and regs. So hopefully as we come out of lockdown, people will take it steadily. The vaccine is still going very well, and there's now over 320,000 vaccines being given in Somerset. It works out that that's 70% of the over 16s population has now had a first vaccine at least, and in most of the age groups that's well above 90%. Even the 45s to 49s are now over 60% have all had their first vaccine. So it is continuing to roll out quickly across Somerset. On other non-COVID issues, the One Somerset, Stronger Somerset debate continues. You'll have seen that as of the 19th of this month, that was the closing date for submissions to be sent into Mr. Jenrick as the Secretary of State as to how we're going to move ahead with the unitary. You will see, if you haven't already seen in publicity, that the districts have decided that they are going to hold a referendum poll. It will be held using the electoral registers, but not having polling stations. It will be done either electronically or by post. It'll run from about a week's time through to into June. People will have 3 weeks to send in their views. The county council is not involved in it at all, and has said that it doesn't wish to take part in it, partly because Mr. Jenrick, when the polls were first being suggested, had said this was not part of the consultation process. His deadline has already passed, and ultimately he will make the decision as to what weight he gives the value of any poll that is taken place. So it is purely advisory. It is not binding on the Secretary of State. So that will obviously take place over the next few weeks, and we'll see the result from that shortly after that. He will then be making his decision probably by the end of July as to which way he's likely to go. Finally, just to mention 2 other issues. Primary school places, it's this time of year when they normally announce how many parents have got their first choice for their children to go to the primary school in the autumn. It's 95% roughly have got their first preference, and 98% have got either their first, second, or third preference, which is similar to figures in previous years. And the last comment I was going to make, slightly coming back towards COVID, but this year the county council has given an extra amount of money to the care providers, the nursing homes. They've had there's going to be an £8 million increase in the money that's paid out to them in the forthcoming year. Half of that is a one-off payment, specifically to try and help the care homes get through this next year, because obviously a lot of them have been hit very badly financially with COVID and the impact that it's had on their residents. So it is hoped that this will help tide them over through this year, because obviously the care sector is essential in terms of social care, and we can't afford for a lot of our care providers to disappear for financial reasons. So hopefully that will help them through this next 12 months. But happy to take any questions if there are any.
Any questions of Bob? Owen, I think if we're going to go on to our formal meetings or face-to-face meetings, presumably, and I think you did circulate it, what provisions we have to make for those meetings in terms of distancing, sanitization, etc. Do we have those, don't we?
We will, yeah. I mean, basically, we've got to make our facility, whichever facility we have, COVID safe. Now, obviously, I've arranged, or I've asked Jenny to provide available dates for the large hall for the 23rd. If we agree that 23rd of June is the right date, then I think we must meet in the large hall rather than the Jubilee room, because we can space ourselves out much more easily than we would be able to in the Jubilee room. So, I don't know, Bob probably can tell me more about the arrangements. The hall, I mean, presumably the hall are having to make arrangements or making provision for the use of the hall during this period, although, of course, technically, the 21st of June, they're talking about restrictions coming off. No one quite knows what that actually means. So I think we've got to wait and see on that, really. Do you agree, Bob, on that? It's just
Warwick.
My experience, I mean, because I'm the chairman of the Burnham-on-Sea Mole Railway Club, and we're still not allowed to go into the community centre in Burnham because of the COVID restrictions. The issues is to do with it's deemed as a public meeting place. It has to be so because it's a parish hall. The parish hall have to take responsibility to ensure that the building is actually COVID safe, i.e., but in between different people going into the building, it has to be sanitized, it has to be deep cleaned, i.e. the toilets, any open spaces, handles on the doors, etc., etc., etc. And it's quite an onerous undertaking, and it's not something that we can just swan in there, just sit around and then go away. So for us to be thrown in to say we have to have meetings in a public building without the government actually laying down guidelines on exactly how this is going to work, I think is a bit short-sighted, especially as the nation is still technically coming out of lockdown. We're not allowed to meet in a confined space in a pub or anything like that. So what's the difference? And how do we mitigate risk? I mean, we've got vulnerable people that work for us, and there are issues about how do we actually ensure that we're not going to potentially either give somebody, coronavirus or carry it around somewhere. And these are things that we have to consider as a council to make sure we protect ourselves and also our families and anybody else that comes in contact with us after this meeting.
Andrea, Brian was up first. Can I come back to you in a minute? Yeah, Brian.
Well, first of all, would we be wearing masks if we did go to a meeting like that? And secondly, if it's in the summer, couldn't we meet on the patio outside?
Could do.
Which would obviate.
Could do, Brian.
Yeah. Which month don't we have a meeting? It's August, isn't it?
It's August. So basically, we've got 2 months to deal with, June and July, because by the time we get to the end of August into September, the situation will have either completely sort of settled itself, or something else would have happened to change everything. So I think really we're talking about June and July meetings primarily.
I mean, we're not out of risk. We're not out of risk because I mean, on Radio 4 today, and Bob would probably back me up, is that the medical profession are actually gearing up to give us all a third vaccination by September this year.
Yeah.
Because we're not out of the woods yet as a nation, and the vulnerable of society potentially might, by what the government guidelines are going, potentially will need vaccinated again by September this year.
Andrea, you didn't get your say.
My point is that I haven't been able to see my son, or we've not been able to visit Warwick's dad, who's been in a care home and has sadly passed away for a year. And I don't feel that I want to be put into a situation. There are vulnerable people on the parish council, and I wouldn't like to be somebody that would have brought that into that environment and then be responsible if they were to become poorly. Because the trouble is that I still have to go to work. We still have couriers, and we still get deliveries, and we also still have to see people because of the nature of our business. And I just feel that I can't live with myself if we've gone, like Warwick and I have not had this, and we've managed to keep ourselves safe, but that's because we've not been outside the door. Our social bubble of being the people that we work with, the 3 people we work with, and we've had to stay like that. And I don't agree that we have to go back to face-to-face meetings. It could wipe the whole council out.
So just a point then, Andrew, I absolutely agree with you. I think, you know, we're a long way from safe. I just wonder what alternatives we've got in terms of the legalities of what we're doing. I mean, obviously, I'd love to have virtual meetings right up to October, because I think that would be the safest way of doing it. But, you know, we're being told that we're just not going to be allowed to do so.
No.
So
yeah, but the thing is that the government needs to provide guidelines of a set of like a tick sheet or a guidelines for parish councils or local councils to mitigate the risk of COVID. What is required? What are the requirements? Social distancing, cleaning, etc., for the parish, for the parish hall to adopt, so that we know that we're going into a COVID secure environment.
Do we all take lateral flow tests, you know, before we have the meeting? Should we take our temperature as we go into the meeting? The trouble is that it can just go on and on and on. Do we take antibody tests to see, you know, if we've got an immunity? I don't know if we've all had the injections. You know, David might not have done, because he might not be in the age bracket yet where it's been available, and then he doesn't have any immunity for 3 weeks after that. And does that make David vulnerable?
But there's one further point as well, Andrew, and that, of course, is we don't know if members of the public will want to come into the meetings as well, which of course is the other bit of the equation, isn't it? If people want to come to a meeting, we don't know who they are necessarily.
No.
You know, so there are issues.
And the thing is that, you know, this is a killer. This is not sort of your average everyday illness. And I for one, I am definitely not coming to a face-to-face meeting in June. No way. I haven't stayed in for all this time and segregated myself from my friends and my family to actually go to a meeting that I'm not happy to go to.
Andy.
I think what's been said is absolutely fair. If we're expecting the government to come back with guidelines with the rate that they've been working recently, I think we're going to be on top of the meeting and still with no guidance. Is there a body that we can talk to about exactly what we need to do to protect our councillors? Because you know, everything that's been said is absolutely correct, isn't it? And we can't put them at that risk. So what is the process? Is there a body that we can go to, a medical council we can go to, that said, how can we protect our councillors and meet? And if that's flows and weeks before and whatever we need to do, then we can take a vote on it. But at the moment, I think we're in the dark, aren't we?
Brian?
I think it's ironic that, in my opinion, the Zoom meetings have been highly successful and efficient.
Absolutely.
And why pardon? And why
Absolutely, I
do we need to stop? Pardon? Sorry.
Absolutely agree with you that for us that work, we don't have to actually be in our house. We could actually be at work and hold this meeting. We haven't had to travel. We haven't had to go and see people because the world has changed. And I do think, you know, we're in. The council needs to evolve, and this is definitely the way of the future. You know, this is how we ought to meet.
I think it improves the quality of our decisions. So,
was only going to say, I obviously understand what people have said. The difficulty is, the legal position is, because the government have not extended the regulations and have not, the court didn't find in favour of the challenge, we cannot meet and make decisions legally on virtual meetings anymore. The legislation was only put in there for a year. That has now expired. That was the thing that allowed us to do it through this format.
I understand that, Bob, but Westminster and also Scotland will still carry on having people that say can't attend Westminster but still do it virtually. And if Westminster and Parliament and the House of Lords can carry on doing virtual correspondence and meetings and making decisions because they have to, I don't see why that can't be percolated down to local level.
Exactly.
And it could have been if the government put in place legislation to do it, but they have chosen not to, and they have, whilst we've appealed to them and said, please put that legislation in, they've come back and said, we're not doing it. So I understand where we would like to be. The problem is, legally, we're in the position where we are. And I guess ultimately it may come down to, we don't, as long as the council has a quorum to meet, then it can make decisions. And that's what we may have to look at is, and that's certainly what the government have suggested in some of their comments, which is particularly for larger councils like counties and districts where there are 50 or so members, finding a venue that's big enough to cope with that is a problem if you're keeping social distancing. They've said, well, you may have to work on the basis that not all members will be able to attend over that period. All I would say is that obviously the parish hall's decision to wait until the 21st of June has been specifically because that's when a lot of the restrictions start coming off. The hall could have looked at opening up earlier, but as Warwick said, we would have a responsibility at that point to try and make sure that people abided by those rules, and no one's there to do that. So by waiting until the 21st, which is when there is supposed to be the removal of a lot of the restriction, including potentially social distancing, that's why the hall will be opening, but they will be putting a responsibility on anyone hiring to make sure that they bring their own sort of hand sanitizers and make sure they carry out that work, and also to make sure that they wipe down anything that they are in contact with both before and after they have used the hall, so that there will be a responsibility on all users to have to look after themselves, because you can't rely on the previous user to have done the job properly.
My feeling, I'll just add a couple of points there really. First of all, I think your point on quorums is good. Secondly, I think using outside is good. But as regards using the building, I don't think it should be up to the users of the building to wipe down everything and sanitize everything. That's the village hall's responsibility, Bob. I.e., you should have, I feel, if you're going to make it a safe environment for us, you should
in place, yeah.
Safe environment for us. Unless I'm what you're doing, you're essentially putting the responsibility of the users of the hall on them, but surely you can't do that. But it's just a point. Andy.
Yeah, I agree it should be the responsibility. There must be an agency that can advise us how to do it or carry out the function between meetings. Yes, there is a cost. And as long as we understand what the process and the cost is, we as councillors can then make a decision whether we want to do it or not, or go to quorum. But at the moment, as we point out, we don't really know the process. Rub down this, bring your own hand sanitizers, wear masks, don't wear masks. We actually need a body to tell us, this is what we've got to do. And then if it's the hall's responsibility, because we're paying a rental on that, then obviously there will be some form of costing in there, either for us to pick up or for the hall to pick up. But I think we need to look at what that is first before we get carried away, because it's a unanimous decision that we protect our people, isn't it?
Nigel.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, we're in the dark with regards to not having any guidance from the legal bodies above us, i.e. the government or whoever is stating that these meetings have to take place face to face. You can't make decisions virtually anymore. So that's where we're in the dark. But with regard to the control measures, we're not in the dark. There are plenty of advice out there. The World Health Organization, the CDC, the NHS websites, and businesses have continued to run quite successfully and effectively and safely with very simple protocols in place, such as the distancing, the face covering, the washing of the hands. They're very simple.
Yeah, no point. I trying to bring this to a conclusion. I think probably Owen and Bob, we need to have a three-way conversation to iron out exactly what the parish hall are going to do, or sorry, what the village hall are going to do, and what our responsibilities are that are laid down to us that we should adhere to. And then we just report back to everyone. We've got until the 23rd of June to sort this out. And who knows, we may be able to have an external meeting that night, if possible. So would you allow us to have that conversation and report back? And probably maybe Nigel, would you like to get involved, as you're also, this is your field, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to get involved and looking at what the protocol should be to keep ourselves safe and others.
We've also got SALC, remember. SALC will be giving us huge amounts of advice, I'm sure, over the coming weeks.
Yeah.
You take their advice.
Okay, so myself, Owen, Nigel and Bob will get together and decide the best way forward. Okay. But it's been a really healthy debate, and thanks everyone for making your points. I hope everyone has had been able to put their view. Thank you. Okay, finance matters, Owen.
Yeah, fairly, you'll be relieved, fairly small amount of finance this month. Obviously the payments, the statutory payments that were agreed in April will be paid this month. These are the standard items that we've agreed on minute 23 to 20 on the 7th of April. New and additional payments for this month arises. There's one main one on the agenda, which is in fact the internal audit figure of £20.96 to Richard Young. There's also a Bristol Water account of 140.35, which goes by direct debit and doesn't actually need a resolution by this particular meeting. We do have one other issue, which is insurance, because normally we would settle the insurance premium on the first week in June. We haven't yet had the total quote, but I probably will need permission to pay that when we get it, because it won't wait until the 23rd of June. So I just need your authorization. It'll be the same figure as last year. There won't be any change, but I need your authorization to make that payment when it comes in and get it authorised by Andrea, Bob or Colin.
Okay,
Accordingly.
Yeah, the proposal then is that we give Owen authority to pay the insurance premium as and when it becomes payable, the 1st of June.
Yeah.
John seconded. All those in favour? That's great. Thank you.
And the payment to Richard Young.
I'm sorry, beg your pardon. And can you authorise the payment to Richard Young, please? All those in favour?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Owen.
That's okay. Just one other thing. External audit procedures have now been fully implemented. Our external audit is now with PKF Little John. So all that is concluded for this year, hopefully, without any issues.
Well done, Owen. Thank you very much. Great job. Okay, item 11, updated matters. A community shop. Bob, do you want to bring us up to date with where we are?
Yeah, thanks, Colin. I think the only real update is to say we're continuing to get the information together that we said we would at the last meeting. We're looking at what can happen with the potential alternative site for the shop should it be needed. What slightly put the fly in the ointment has been, as you may have seen, the shop. We thought last time we met that the shop had got a purchaser. That sale unfortunately fell through, so you'll have seen the board is back up outside the front for sale. So that has slightly put things back a little bit in terms of knowing exactly what the options are that we're going to have in front of us. But at the moment, the working party are continuing to look at all the options, and we'll report back as soon as we've got some firm information that we can feed back to the rest of the council for any further decisions to be made.
Thanks, Bob. Any questions of Bob there, or of the subgroup that are dealing with the steering committee? No? Okay, thank you very much. Speed indicator, any news on that in terms of delivery? Or
not heard anything at the moment. They do take a bit of time, apparently. This particular company, they're not the quickest in the world, I'm told, but I understand it's getting close to delivery.
Okay, thank you.
So I have heard now from, you probably saw the reply back, Colin, from Richard Ibrahim. He's very happy to relinquish his responsibilities so that we can move to facilities management for the management of the SID. He's written a very good and very positive reply today. So we've at least got that part of the equation sorted.
Yeah, I think it would be useful to know the precise locations that were agreed with highways.
Yes.
We agreed 5 places. I don't know them all, and I think Richard will have those.
And he's very happy to give us that information.
Okay, thank you. And as regards the SG people, I haven't forgotten about them, but I'm about to remind them of what their obligations are once again. So I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay. Weight restrictions, Burton Row.
Ongoing.
Okay. 20-mile-an-hour limit near the village school.
Not aware there's any new information on that, Bob, is there? I've not heard of anything. No.
No, if I can, there was a comment made at full council at county today, in that the leader at county said that obviously the rollout of the 20-mile-an-hour limits had been slowed by the whole COVID process. They are looking to speed that back up again now and get those rolled out as soon as they can. So that will then impact both on Brent Knoll, but also East Brenta in the same waiting list that we are. So both should be coming through before too long.
Thank you, Bob. The signage, the letter from Tony Hill regarding signage and odd poles that were lying around. Any new signs?
Well, I've sent this lady at County Highways 3 emails now, and I've failed to have a reply to any of them. I really don't know. You can't contact her directly, unfortunately. You have to contact us through County Highways, unless Bob's got a contact email. Have you, Bob?
I have been in touch with her, and certainly she is aware of the issues in Brent Knoll and knows that they need to be dealt with.
Okay, so I think that's an ongoing issue, really, isn't
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Defibrillator project.
it? The D word.
Yeah,
No.
I think-
Nothing to report on that, of course, because until the telephone kiosk has resolved itself, then really we can't do much on defibrillator, I don't think, really.
I wonder, Bob, just a matter of interest, round at East Brent, they've got one at the surgery and one on the post office on the A38. Has there been any demand at all to use those?
I'm told that yes, they have been used.
Have they?
Yeah.
Right. Good.
Okay.
Okay, well, I think we should still keep that one on the boil, as it were.
Yes. Yes.
We probably do need to consider that at some stage in more detail.
We'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Correspondence.
Nothing, apart from what you've received on emails.
Okay. Matters of decision. A, the children's climbing frame repair. No, Nigel and Brian, I failed to turn up. I think I've got a date, but you both met with Colin. Do you want to give a summary, please?
Well, let Nigel start, because he gave a very thorough one. Start with, didn't you? We met on the 15th of April with Colin from GB Sports. Sorry, go on, Nigel.
Yeah, bear with me a second, because I'm just looking for my notes on this.
Well, shall I? I'll do a resume. I've got a resume here, right? 15th of April we met, and it was to report on the state of the roundabout in particular, which can't be replaced. It's been there for 30, 40 years.
Nice.
There's a piece jutting out underneath, which is quite dangerous, and we need to do something about that. But it was particularly the climbing frame we were looking at, and there is an unknown amount of rot in the struts. And he particularly didn't think it was a good idea to replace them, because you don't know how deep it goes. And the wooden panels on it were decaying, and screws were rusting, and some of the panels were loose. That's over 30 years old. His suggestion was that, first of all, if you made short-term repairs, they would only last probably 2 to 3 years, cost about £2,000. But a complete replacement might cost £10,000 to £13,000. Also, I noticed some of the surfaces need to be re-examined, and there are I noticed also some slits and some tears in the safety surface, especially on the edges. So I don't know whether you want to add more.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brian. So in the last report from GB Sport, there are a number of comments that are in that report that reflects that meeting that we had on the village green. Correct with regards to that roundabout piece of play equipment that does need repair, but Colin wasn't prepared to entertain offering to fix that, and we need to look at getting that fixed with a local carpenter, whether or not Paul Dixon can help us out there. But it does present a bit of a hazard there. I'm surprised it wasn't really sort of like risk scored higher in the report that came from GB Sport. And you're correct with regards to that climbing frame. There's two options. We either get the repairs done and just hope it lasts longer than 2 to 3 years, and we know it won't. There's also the additional concern that this does rust from the outside, from the inside out, and we're not sure the depth of that rust underground or even up where it's exposed further up the frame. And then also concerning those wooden panels that you spoke of there, Brian, I did provide pictures. Maybe I should have got them ready to show here, but they are loose. There are screws missing. They are rusting. They are at heights, So they're on the upper level. So that is a bit of concern. So there is some work that needs to be done. And the ballpark figure there is, as you know, I think it was around 2.5K total.
Yeah,
Just off the top of his head, which would last us 1 to 3 years maybe, versus a new frame, a new climbing frame, and we're looking at 10 to 13,000 for that. So, I mean, that's an item that we need to discuss and make a decision, and whether or not we start putting provisions aside for that.
Going into more detail, if we do decide to replace it, we could perhaps incorporate something for the under fives as well, but that's something to be discussed in the future.
Bob.
Bob?
Yeah, Chairman, just a couple of things. One, we seem to be going round a bit in circles. I mean, what slightly worries me is we had a discussion about the climbing frame. We agreed that we were going to do the repair. The working party that you were going to be involved with was to go out and just double check whether it was 6 legs rather than 4 legs. And suddenly now we seem to be reopening up the whole discussion about whether we're replacing it or repairing it. I thought we'd already moved beyond that, and this was a question of which of the quotes we were accepting, the ones that John had put together, or we were getting the 2 quotes to be the same. It just seems to be that we're suddenly reopening up an old decision that we'd already looked at. And the other thing is, I would be amazed if we could get a climbing frame, safer surface and everything installed for 10 to 13,000. That seems incredibly cheap compared with anything else that we've looked at. When we had that whirling teepee sort of spinning wheel, I mean, that was not far short of that by the time we put all the safer surfacing as well. So I think I can't believe that 10 to 13,000 is going to get us anywhere near replacement of what we've got there at the moment.
We took advice from this Colin, this expert, and obviously there was more rot than we originally thought there was.
Well, Sutcliffe have quoted us for a variety of different play equipment, which I've circulated to Nigel and Brian. And the costs are, as you quite rightly say, Bob, substantial. But this is, and you're quite right, it for all of us, it's a perennial problem. We never have any money. We never have the capital or planning in place to replace this equipment. And it's catching up on us. And now it's catching up on us with the roundabouts as well. So I think that, as you quite rightly point out, Bob, there are 2 issues here. One, we need to decide what we're going to do with the existing climbing frame and roundabout. And secondly, we need to look into what our long-term strategy is for replacing the equipment, because if we got 2 years out of it, at least that would be 2 years of financial planning towards replacing them, because we just haven't got that money now, or well, our SIL money lies there, but it might well be that we have to put it towards other projects that we get involved with. So my feeling is that we go ahead with GB Sports and do a thorough examination of these 4 main legs and the 2, correct me if I'm wrong, Nigel and Brian, the 2 small legs at the end of the slide, which also need some attention. And I know we might be throwing good money after bad, but we're getting hopefully a reprieve of 2 years while we make these items a serious consideration of what we're going to do.
Going back to the roundabout, it's very old. It's what, 40 years or so, but of course it's very strong. The piece underneath needs to be repaired. But I can imagine, although it is old, this roundabout going on for years and years still. but that could be repaired. I'm not so sure about the big frame.
Is it worth, as it's a woodwork job by the sound of it, asking Paul, because he is very good at that sort of stuff, to give us a price or give us an indication of whether he can do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the roundabout then, we've decided that we're going to ask Paul to have a look at it. Are we all in favour of that?
Yes.
Okay. What about the repairs now to the main climbing frame?
Andrew, speak.
Andy, what's over?
Oh, sorry, Andy, I can't see you. Beg your pardon.
That's no problem. I'm short. Just listening to what we're saying, that if we go for a 2-year plan and therefore we put money behind it and we go for 2 years, we're going to raise the money. Yet we're saying every year we're strapped. Then that means we've got to go on some form of fundraising and either go to parishioners and ask them to contribute. And again, because I don't know the full rules, whether we can do that. Or secondly, can we not secure a loan and make one repair or replacement and secure loans from on the grounds of health and safety? Because if we're going to repair this and we're going to keep throwing money at it, are we going to have the money in 2 years' time? We haven't got it now. Or are we just pushing the ball down the road?
Bob?
I mean, certainly in terms of funding, what we have managed to do previously is there are grants out there which help towards play equipment, and the 2 years potentially give us time to find those as to what they can contribute. I mean, in terms of it being for health and safety, as Nigel mentioned, it's interesting in the report that's just been sent to us, everything on that report was green. There was nothing there that was even a medium serious risk. So it is something I know I don't think it is pushing it down the line 2 years. I think it is just giving us that breathing space to look at what the options are that we have out there and making sure that it doesn't get significantly worse in the shorter term.
Well, I think if I agree with you, Bob. I think if we do this repair, then we also agree that we're going to enter into a process of identifying available grants and being proactive in applying for those grants. If we don't do that, we're going to be back in the same place as we are now in 2 years' time. So I think that should go alongside this undertaking, because I understand, Andy, that we are not as free to borrow money as we would like to think we are. We're not a commercial organisation. It has to be done. If we borrow money, in a nutshell, we have to go to the community to explain what we're doing and get their approval for it to be amalgamated within the precept. If we're going to spend large sums of money that we don't necessarily have, so the community will have to pay for it. But if we start now with grant applications, and look at our precept, maybe to put a little bit in extra each year, which we try to do towards play equipment, then we may well achieve that goal over a period of 2 years. But you know, we can't just let this play equipment. It's just catching up with us now, essentially. So I don't know if anybody else would like to make a proposal or has any.
Colin, can I just say something about the fundraising? Obviously, our precept at Brent Knoll is, and I think Bob will bear this out, is one of the higher precepts for a council of our size. Yeah. So if you take a comparable council, similar size, similar electorate to ours, we are in the top echelons of the precept. So we don't have that huge margin to be able to go and say, well, okay, we'll stick the precept up by 10 grand next year. We don't have that really, unless we want to put ourselves at the top of the list. So I'm sure it's not something we would aim for. But just to sort of put it in context with other councils, you know, we just seem to have got to that higher point in terms of.
Colin,
Yes, Malcolm.
various parishes have had grants from Hinkley Point, etc., for replacing their playground equipment. What happens to the equipment they take out?
Mhm.
No idea, Malcolm. No idea at all.
Would Bob be able to find out?
Certainly ones I'm aware of, generally it gets scrapped because often it's in a state where it's not reusable for someone as a normal one. So unfortunately, it tends to bite the dust.
Right.
Let's come back to the main thing. Do we get this climbing frame repaired by GB Sports in accordance with their quotation?
I would propose that.
Okay, Malcolm's proposed it. Do I have a seconder for that?
There would be some liability on the fabricators about the life of that, surely.
Well, the
No.
life.
This is the concern from Colin from GB Sports. To undertake that repair, they wouldn't be prepared to give us any sort of like life guarantee or time guarantee on the repairs.
Okay.
I thought we had local fabricators prepared to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we when we spoke to GB Sports, looking at them as the competent and the professionals to give us that advice. Of course, you can get anybody if you pay them money to do a task. Now, the local fabricators that I think John Harper arranged gave us a quote, and the whole discussion was: do we go with those fabricators, or do we go with GB Sports? And I think from here we're talking about going with GB Sports, correct?
That would seem to be the way the conversation is going.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because there now are, if you like, 6 legs to do and the to replace as well.
Yeah.
Colin, I'm happy to second Malcolm's proposal if that helps move things on.
Okay, thank you, Bob. So, yes, John.
Oh, I agree with all of that.
Okay, let's put it to a vote then. All those in favour that we go with GB Sports to carry out the work?
Is that unanimous?
Andrew's done as well. Okay, that's yeah, well done. But can we agree then that we will now explore potential grant bodies and that we commence a process of application? And can I ask that Brian, Nigel, help also with that process, because sometimes it can be a bit of a lengthy process. Okay. Or I will come to members to ask whether they will help with the process, because it's obviously going to be a big job. Okay. Can you make a note of that for us? So we're going to. Well done. Thank you. Okay, handyman. We've got people come forward offering to do our handiwork. Paul Dixon, and the other one is the guy that we are proposing to use for our facilities management of the speed sign. Owen?
Yep, there are 2 that have come forward. We haven't had any others responding to the BKN article. Just those, they're the only 2 that responded.
Have they given us their prices or hourly rates that they would charge?
No, they've just said they'd like to talk to us. They're happy to talk to us. Well, I think we know a bit more about Paul than we do about facilities management, in fairness.
Okay.
What we probably need to do is write to them both and say, can you give us some sort of ballpark idea of your hourly rates?
Yeah, and also I assume that the facilities management company have presumably different skilled personnel in their team.
Yeah.
Where Paul is just Paul, but he's obviously very adept at doing different jobs.
And of course, we need to see their relevant insurance and any other sort of security bits that we need to secure from them. But we would need to do that with facilities management anyway, with regard to SID.
Okay.
So we can kill two birds with one stone. So I'll write to them both and get their credentials, so to speak.
Okay. All right. Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Health and safety developments. We were going to use a specialist company, weren't we, or somebody?
Yeah, it's called Atlas in Wellington, and they weren't able to visit us during the COVID situation, but they are now happy to come out, meet Nigel and myself, to talk through what they intend to do and how they're going to present it. And if Nigel's still up for that, then we'll try and set something up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item D, Owen, is this a proposal that we have to agree now?
Well, yes, it is.
That we won't be holding our normal early June meeting, but our June meeting will be postponed until the new legislation comes in, and we'll have our next meeting on June the 23rd.
Yes, always subject to any other changes in matters that come outside of our control, so to speak. The other thing we certainly need to agree the 23rd of June, but we also need to agree that delegated powers might need to be used by what we had last year, which was effectively chairman, vice chairman and clerk, on matters that cannot wait until the 23rd of June. There may be some matters that need to be decided upon before 23rd of June, because we've got a 7-week gap between our two meetings.
Okay, so can we propose, or can I propose then that our initial early June meeting is postponed and rearranged for the 23rd of June in accordance with government legislation, and that in the interim you approve delegated powers for emergency matters to your chairman, your vice chairman and your clerk. That's the proposal. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Anybody want a second? Andy, all those in favour?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. That one's carried then, Owen. Is that okay? Great. Last item. We're doing quite well. Matters of report for the next meeting. If I go through my screen that I can see so far. Cynthia, anything for the next meeting?
I'm only making a point here. I met a couple of people who visit Ralph's Wood regularly, and they said it is absolutely full of dog muck, and nobody seems to clean anything up. And this was a general complaint. I know perhaps not anything to do with that, but it is people that are walking there. I don't know whether we can do anything about that.
Bob, is Ralph's Wood within our parish, as it were?
I think it is within our parish, but technically it's not a public footpath, so it's the responsibility of the riches.
Yes, well that's it. I thought perhaps that's what it would be, but I thought
should there be dog bins then, which are made available at the 2 gate entrances and then collected?
Yeah.
Bob?
If that was something that the parish council wished to look at providing, then yes, we could have a dog bin put there in conjunction with Sedgemoor, as we did with the one that's now being installed in Brent Street. But that would be an ongoing cost.
Could it be a shared cost, 1 gate being East Brent, 1 gate being Brent Knoll?
Good idea.
I'm sure it's a discussion that you could have with East Brent.
Okay, I think it would be worth doing that because it is very popular, that that wooded area. Perhaps we could put that up for, good point, Cynthia. Perhaps we could put it up for the next meeting
Yes.
and maybe pursue it. Yeah, okay. John,
Oh, thank you.
thank you very much. How are you feeling, John? Are you feeling okay? Sorry?
He said fine.
Nigel,
Oh, I'm good, thank you.
Nigel, Brian,
No.
Andrea,
Nothing from me, thank you.
Warwick,
No, nothing from me.
David.
No, nothing from me, thank you.
Okay, where have I got to now? Bob,
And not from me either, thank you.
Andy,
No, nothing.
and Malcolm.
No, not for me.
Okay, and nothing from me. So we've reached the end. Well done, thank you. And our next meeting is the 23rd of June, but we will be back to you with trying to address your concerns, because I think they are very relevant concerns and we do take them all on board. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye now.